Thank you, Summer. And peace, everybody. Once again, my name is Samuel Nathaniel Brown. As you heard Summer say just now, I am the founder, director of the 10P program, and also the original author of Prop 6. Um, Man, I'm blown away by everything Lene just shared, to be honest with you. That was very informative, and I thought that was a great question you asked, Michael, about making it clear to the voters. But with that said, Prop 6. Prop 6 is a piece of legislation that is like critical to changing the carceral system as we know it. For many years, we have been trying to end slavery from hundreds of years almost. You might as well say we've been trying to end slavery in this country. And now we have an opportunity to do it here in California. So you've heard the saying before that slavery exists just by another name. It's true. Thank you. Right on. And so Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution reads, involuntary servitude and slavery are prohibited except as punishment for a crime. And the reason why I wrote this bill to begin with is, as I stated at the beginning of the call, I served 24 years. And around my 22nd year of incarceration, I found myself faced with being the first person in the state of California to have to disinfect behind someone who tested positive for COVID-19 in the carceral setting. A staff member came into the prison infected and passed it to the prison population. And as the head of my crew, the healthcare facility maintenance workers, I had to clean her office. And then I had to clean behind the prisoners who tested positive in the hotel, in the hospital section of the prison. And it spread like wildfire. It went from one person to the next person. We started out with a 12-man crew. My 12-man crew went down to just me. My neighbor died from COVID. The person above me died from COVID. The person in the building outside of my building died from COVID. And I spoke to my then supervisors and I told them, I said, man, I don't want to keep risking my life. You know, you all don't even want to come past the double doors. Y'all seeing me in here to go disinfect and clean, but y'all won't even come down this hallway where you're sending me into this infirmary to go clean. And I said, I'll come to work every other day. And they thought I was joking until I didn't come to work one day. When I didn't come to work, they then approached me and told me that I couldn't take any days off of work, that I had to come to work or else I would receive a 115. And the 115 is a modern day whip. That's the rules violation report. And because I was a lifer prisoner, I had to go to the Board of Parole hearings. I'd already been 4 times to the Board of Parole hearings. And if I walked into that Board of Parole hearings with that 115, it would have been an automatic 15-year denial. And they knew that. So I had already been in prison for 22 years. I couldn't afford to walk in there with a 115 and get a 15-year denial just because I missed one day of work because I was terrified for my life. So I had to go. And it didn't matter that at this time I had earned 3 college degrees. I had done thousands of hours of self-help programming. I created the 10P program in 2014. And at this time, it had been running for like 7, almost 8 years, touching thousands of lives and helping to shape what rehabilitation looks like in the state of California right now. None of that mattered. They would have deemed me a risk to society and given me a 15-year denial. If there was mitigating evidence, it would have been a 10-year denial, maybe 7, 5, and then 3 was the lowest they could have given me. So I had no choice but to go. And I spoke to my partner who I was with at the time, and I told her, I was like, I'm terrified for my life. And she said, well, can't you appeal it? And I said, I could appeal it, but the Constitution backs it. The 13th Amendment of the Federal Constitution and Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution. And she said, well, why don't you change the Constitution? I said, okay, well, I'll change the Constitution then. And I got my hands on the paperwork and I did the research on labor law, family law, California Code of Regulations. And within a week's time, I wrote the bill and we sent it out. And Assemblymember Sidney Comlager, she picked it up and she authored the bill at that point and it became ACA 3. We did the first press conference during COVID. I was still in prison with a life sentence. They held the phone up to the microphone. I was calling from the wall phone in prison. They had a cell phone to the mic and we did a press conference together. ACA 3 passed the Assembly unanimously. It passed through the Senate unanimously until the last day when white supremacy reared its ugly head Okay, I got muted on accident. And they began lying and saying that the bill was about making life easy for people who are incarcerated and so forth and so on. And the governor's office then said it would cost $1.5 billion annually if they passed the bill. So it died. And it was this epic moment of Assembly member who then became Senator, Tom Lager, in tears on the floor because it was a really historical piece of legislation. So then we doubled back. Assembly member Lori Wilson then picked it up, became ACA 8. We got it through the Senate unanimously once again. And then we passed like 33-3 through the Senate. The governor signed off on it. And now it's Prop 6. Thank you very much. And now it's Prop 6 and it's on the ballot. And so basically what it represents is placing rehabilitation over forced labor. As it stands right now, excuse me, everybody that I met while I was incarcerated was a casualty long before they were an offender. So that's why I said my program is predicated upon the theory of emotional illiteracy-based criminality, which posits that nobody's born bad, nobody's born evil, but people adopt criminality as a coping mechanism for unprocessed traumas. So in this fashion, we seek to place rehabilitation at the forefront and take incentive away from these corporations such as Home Depot, Walmart, Nintendo, 3M, Victoria's Secrets, Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's, you name it, all who utilize prison labor, all that benefit from prison labor, Avis, American Airlines, Fidelity Investments, all of them. They invest in this quote unquote tough on crime legislation that decimates communities of color, not because they care about public safety, but just so they can get these cheap labor forces behind the walls. And by passing Prop 6, we strip them of that. So we take away the incentives for them to invest in that, but also we place the person above the bottom line of these organizations. And we give them an opportunity to face, to deal with the traumas that led them to prison to begin with, versus being forced to pick up a broom. I learned how to push a broom at my mama's house. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to wash dishes at my mama's house. I didn't need to go to the pen or prison for that. What I didn't learn how to do, and many of us didn't learn how to do, was ask for help or to be vulnerable. And there are programs, that actually provide those opportunities in a carceral setting. But if they'll snatch you out of the program and put you in the kitchen or make you go pick up trash on the yard, is defeating the purpose. So the purpose of Prop 6, in a nutshell, is to de-incentivize these corporations from investing in, giving money to these lobbyists and these legislators so they can pass these bills that destroy our communities. It's to give people in prison an opportunity to actually get the help that they need so they can come back out as contributing members to society, and to place rehabilitation over forced labor. Then on the other note, I believe it's Bill 628. It's a companion bill that's waiting for Prop 6 to get passed. And once it gets passed, when it's enacted, then CDCR is required to pay a decent wage to people who are incarcerated. Paying people who are incarcerated a decent wage then allows them to, become taxpayers. So it increases the tax base. It allows them to pay child support, restitution, court fees, and learn what it really means to be a contributing member of society. And then when they step out of prison, they'll have the certification, as well as not only the experience, but the opportunity to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just the experience, but the recommendations. It's another word that's eluding me right now, because the way it currently stands is people do these jobs in prison. You can do the same job for 10 years. And when you walk out, there's nobody to say that you did this job or that you have these skills. There's a gap in your resume. But once we get that out of the way, people will be able to come home with proof that they not only have this experience, but they've been doing these jobs, and it increase their employability. So all of these things are hinged upon Prop 6, and we really need to raise awareness around it and get people out to vote yes. I just thank y'all for the opportunity to speak to you about it.
Thank you so much for that. You and I had talked shortly after we met yesterday, I think it was, or a couple days ago, and I didn't get into all of this about Prop 6 with you. We talked about other things, your program, but I'll be honest, I have so many thoughts, but I'm gonna pass it over to anybody on the call, because I do have some questions, but I want to turn it over to anybody that's here that has any
Okay.
questions for you, and then I'll ask my questions. Does anyone have any questions for Sam?
I just want to say thank you, Sam, for sharing this information, for the work that you're doing. A lot of people don't even know that this system of slavery exists.
Right.
So the fact that we're even coming at the system, it's so important. So I just want to, I wrote in the chat, Supervisor Mitchell has endorsed this. There's a lot of organizing around it. Mike, what is most helpful for you at this stage? Because I don't know how you all are feeling with it passing, and what would be most helpful for you.
Thank you. That's a great question. So right now in this final push, um, resources and awareness would be the most important thing, because we're down to like 14 days. And nothing more than, I would really love to do like a media blitz, commercials, more phone banking, and getting people out, formerly incarcerated people as ambassadors, to talk about it even more. So, like, as you said, there's been a lot of organizing around it, but most of you probably never even heard my name. You wouldn't even know I was the person that wrote it, because there's so many people trying to take credit for it. And, in politics, it's a lot of money involved. So a lot of people have been making money off this bill, raising whatever they're doing. And here I am, me and my staff, we've been out here. We in the streets. Like I said, I'm doing house calls. I'm doing all this stuff. And it's been depleting my resources. It has depleted my resources, but I believe in this work. And so what we need resources for this final push, and we need more people to talk about it.
I think it's interesting. This is Michael. I didn't understand the legislation until I heard then State Senator Kamlager speak on it. And I think there needs to be more education on it. I'm hoping that because there's no opposition, it'll pass. But it's at a point in time where some people are getting blitzed multiple times a day with from the media. It's just, news is just what the crime blotter now. It's just, that's all it does. And so it's on several times a day. It becomes difficult. So I think people are having a visceral reaction to what they perceive is an increase in crime. I think statistics, depending upon where you live, show that that's not the case. So how do we make this issue, which once someone can sit and listen to you, and people, others who advocate for this, how can we get that across to people in a shorter, more concise form? Because not everybody's going to take the 15, 20 minutes to listen. So is there social media out there that we could kind of go to and help share, so that breaks this down in a way that those people who understandably, see what's going on and around in terms of in some neighborhoods as it relates to, increases in crime, and want there to be consequences for actions versus this. And I think that's honestly the going to be a large part of the education battle.
So that's a great question. For one, you can go to our organization's website, 10pprogram.org/yes-on-6, and you can learn more information about it. Then you go to Yes on 6 and also learn more information about it. And regarding your answer, as far as regarding your question, regarding a short answer, this has been a long-term issue, and trying to just encapsulate it really quick. I know that's always the art. And so what I would say to people is that by placing rehabilitation over forced labor, Yeah, by placing rehabilitation over forced labor. Also 10pprogram.org, yes on 6. By placing rehabilitation over forced labor, you honor people who have actually are crime survivors or victims next to kin, because you're making sure that the people who are incarcerated are actually taking the time to better understand why they chose a life of crime to begin with. As it currently stands, by them going in there and just having a broom in their hand, they're not learning or understanding why they were there to begin with. So that does not decrease recidivism. That does not provide a person an opportunity to come home and enhance public safety. It's doing the exact opposite. You're setting them up to come home for failure if and when they make it home. So it's actually the total opposite. It's just the contrast has to be made. The way it currently stands, it exacerbates the situation. And punitive measures are not the answer.
Thank you.
Yes,
You're welcome. Thank you.
thanks for your questions. Michael, does anybody else have any questions? I do, thank you, Sam, for sharing and for taking your experience and turning it into some powerful change. So first of all, you mentioned like all of these companies that use labor of incarcerated people, and you mentioned Fidelity. What on earth is like an investment company? Like what are they like? What are they using incarcerated individuals to do?
Man, so there's a host of jobs that incarcerated individuals do. They do everything from, let's say you may call and think you're talking to a receptionist in the Philippines or in Thailand because you think this company may have outsourced. You're actually talking to a woman that may be in Folsom State Prison somewhere.
I did not know that.
Packaging their food, creating the document, not the documents, but everything from furniture to prep. I mean, you name it. To lens crafters, the eyeglasses. Every state uses prison labor. Some exacerbate it and make it worse than others. I believe there's 16 that are at the top. But prison labor, the plantation economics runs the United States, and it has never stopped. Whether they're doing a chain gang, whether it's a prison farm with agriculture, it shows up. Whether it's Nintendo, like I said, 3M, all of these people, Victoria's Secrets, Burger King, they all find some way to benefit and cut labor costs and increase their bottom line by
Wow.
utilizing people who are incarcerated.
I would have never guessed that because I know that companies outsource to other countries to do their call centers. I've been in the dark about those calls going right into states and cities right here with incarcerated people in the other line.
It's
I'm
called
curious.
insourcing.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
It's referred to as insourcing.
Insourcing, okay. Just knowing that Walmart is one of the biggest funders of Prop 36, and I know we have one of our next speakers who's here, who's joined us, Shervin, is going to talk about Prop 36. It's interesting that there doesn't seem to be opposition, like obvious opposition to Prop 6, but Walmart is investing a lot of money into Prop 36. And can you speak on any connections there?
Yeah, 100%. And peace, server. 100%. I'm happy to hear you bring that up because Michael brought it up just a minute ago, and I meant to follow up on that. This whole thing about there being no opposition to Prop 6, I tell everyone everywhere I go, do not allow that to rock you to sleep. Because they're saying there's no opposition, the last thing we want is for everyone to think, oh, this is going to pass. I don't have to vote for it. Taquana vote for it. Or I don't have to vote for it. Linnea vote for it. I don't have to vote for it. Someone vote for it. No one's opposing it. That's the wrong way to think. Like you said, you have Walmart, Home Depot, these large organizations supporting Prop 36, which is another boom in locking people up, but they won't come out and say that we support slavery. So they won't flat out come out and say we oppose ending slavery. Instead, they'll throw themselves behind a bill that tugs at the heartstrings of the public because they're claiming like it's for public safety, just so they can fill the prisons up and get cheaper labor. So indirectly, that is their opposition. And almost everywhere across the state, 36 and 6 have been tied together. You hear yes on 6, no on 36. Yes on 6, no on 36. So you best believe everyone that supports 36 is also being told, because we're not in them circles, but you better believe, just like our circles are saying yes on 6, no on 36, I'm pretty sure they're saying yes on 36, no on 6. You know what I'm saying? Because they're just tied together. And it's just the opposition, the antithesis.
Yeah.
So though they're not directly stating that they oppose it, their actions are showing that they're not ready to let the plantation go.
Right. And that's one more question that I had. Well, actually a couple more questions, but I'll keep it brief. You had mentioned it's a companion bill that would allow incarcerated individuals to receive wages for the work, and also the work experience that goes into like that. I mean, sometimes work experience is better than a college degree. And incarcerated individuals that are doing this work, whether it's voluntary or they're getting paid for it, you know, because wages are going to be, you know, we can get wages implemented. It needs to be recorded because that's the work that you've done, that it's something for
Correct.
your time. Can you bring me up to speed? Because I know in California, there was legislation that was passed, and at one point, incarcerated individuals actually had to pay for themselves to be incarcerated. And there were legal obligation fees or something like that. Once you were released, you actually had a debt that you had to pay for being incarcerated. Did California, is that still going on? And will that, how will that affect, like if somebody's getting paid wages, will they be released and then their wages garnished because you owe these fees for the time that you were incarcerated?
So 100%, you still owe restitution when you get out. If you haven't paid your restitution off, when you come home, you still owe it. When I came home after serving 24 years, I had $33,000 worth of restitution. Despite having a job almost every year of my incarceration, I still came home owing almost $30,000 restitution, right? And I got a letter from the franchise tax board telling me that they were going to place a lien on everything that I made until I paid that $30,000 off. So that's still very much a thing. And in regards to people getting paid for the, working now, it's Assembly Bill, I think it's 628. I want to make sure I get the numbers correct, but it's the companion bill that accompanies Prop 6. And it will allow people now, it's going to mandate CDCR, once this bill is passed, to now incentivize people to work because they need their consent in order to work. And so what that means is you can't just force a person to work no more. So you have to offer them something that makes them see it as worth their while. In addition to reducing their time or knocking off, a couple months or days, a year, they're saying you have to raise the wages, give them something that they see interest in. And this in turn will, depending on what they raise it to, especially if it's like minimum wage or something, will allow them to become taxpayers. It would increase the tax base if it works out that way. So then the experience, that's what I was touching on earlier, was their letters. When you go from one employer to another employer, I'm forgetting the word, it's eluding me right now.
Like letters of recommendation or referrals?
Basically, yeah, because you have nobody, you can't go to CDCR and say, hey, CDCR, why don't you tell this potential employer that I worked for you for the last 10 years? They're not going to write you a letter of reference, a reference letter. There's an opportunity here now for outside organizations to come in and actually train and employ people. Because that's how I initially wrote the bill up. I initially wrote the bill to where we'd have community partners, say they ran a janitorial service that could come in and take over the porter section of the prison. The support services part that employs porters. Now they can be employed by a potential janitorial service that can say that they've been working for us for the last 10 years. When they get out, we'll offer them employment and we give them a letter of reference. Getting the slave labor out the way opens the door for that. It opens the door for different opportunities. So there's a host of things as far as rehabilitation that we'll be able to pursue once we get that mandatory slave labor off the books.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And the way you've explained it makes it so much bigger than just eliminating indentured servitude or slave labor, because it's about people being able to, if you are serving time, come out as a whole person with the last 10, 15, 5, 24 years of your life still being worth something that can help you move forward. Because the way it is right now, with the restitution that you still owe, without having any ability to show proof of the work that you've done, you're being set up to reoffend. You're being set up
Correct.
to have to make tough decisions on how to care for your family, how to pay back that $30,000 debt. That's not even tied to something that is going to benefit your life in some way. So it's so much bigger, and that's why I'm really grateful that you were here, that you explained it, that you took the time to help us understand it, because I'm understanding so much more about this from the way you've explained it than just reading through my sample ballot and perusing different websites. And I think people really need to see the bigger picture that's tied to Prop 6. And also, I'm assuming, this is my last question, when this passes in California, where does it go next? What's the next step?
So it's passed in Colorado, Utah, Nebraska, Virginia, Tennessee, and Alabama already. It's also on the ballot this year in Nevada. They're seeking to get it on in New Jersey. And there's a movement across the nation with the Abolish Slavery National Network to get it done on the federal level. I hear that Senator Jeff Merkley and the sister, I forget the sister name, they're pushing a federal version of this. Makima, I think her name is Makima. They're pushing the federal version of Prop 6 to get it done in the federal constitution. So the goal is to, if they can't just pass a bill on the federal level, then to get 3/4 of the states to change their constitutions so we can get it done that way. But there is a national movement to make this a reality all across the nation.
That's what's up. There's a movement we got to be a part of. And again, I feel like I have to keep giving these disclaimers. BWDC has not officially endorsed any ballot measures, but speaking as an individual, this makes perfect sense to me. We can't support slavery. That's what it comes down to. And when I think about situations like this and the numbers of Black men who are incarcerated, I think about, and I share this with you, my 5 Black sons, and the chances of them in having a negative encounter with law enforcement. We're not just understanding this and supporting it for the sake of others. These are our family members, our sisters, brothers, cousins, anybody who's been affected by the carceral system. That's who we have to think about when we make our decision about Prop 6. So Sam, I'm so grateful for you, so grateful for the work you're doing. I'm inspired, and I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you.